Welcome to Life, Death, and the Law, presented by the law firm of Deason, Garner, and Hansen, hosted by attorneys Sean Garner and Adam Hansen.
Welcome to another edition of Life, Death, and the Law. I'm Sean Garner, attorney from Deason, Garner, and Hansen, in studio here with Thomas Sparks, Adam Hansen, and Cody Beeson. Welcome, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Adam recently returned from his trip of transporting the casket of his mother to Utah.
Utah, yeah.
And it was an eventful trip, or at least not as eventful as it could have been, which is a good thing, but eventful in other ways. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so if you remember, you listeners that are diehard fans
Stalwarts.
that listen, all three of you, if you remember a few episodes back, Cody and I talked about this, my plans of moving my mom's remains from Wilcox, Arizona, where we grew up. That's where she died in 1989. So 35 years ago, she died. I was 6 years old at the time. I'm the youngest of four boys. And so my oldest brother at the time, I think, was 13. He was in middle school. And so she passes away kind of unexpectedly, kind of quickly in Wilcox, where we were living at the time. And we ended up staying there, my brothers and my dad. And he basically finished raising us there. We graduated high school there and went off and did our own separate things. Now I'm in Yuma with Sean in our practice here. I've got a brother who's got his doctorate over in California. He's a superintendent. I have another brother up in Idaho, my oldest brother up in Idaho, who works for a nuclear research lab up there. And then I have a brother that works for Raytheon over in Tucson. So we've all got our own families and our own kids now, 35 years later. Well, over time, we have nothing back in Wilcox. And so my dad has a lot of family that's buried in a particular cemetery up in Utah. In Bear River is the name of this little town. And so the conversation started happening maybe a year and a half ago. My dad, it was obvious that he wants to be buried there. And so the dilemma is, well, if he's buried there, what about Mom back in Wilcox, which is, hundreds of miles away in southern Arizona? And so we started the conversation with my dad about, well, what if we move Mom up now while we're alive and able to Bear River? And when you die, then you can be next to her. And so ultimately, that's what we decided to do. And so we talked about this a few weeks ago on our program. Cody and I were having the conversation about the prep that was going into all this. We had to coordinate with the cemetery here in Arizona and the cemetery up in Bear River in Utah, and both those cemeteries had to be involved because it's kind of like a quarterback to a receiver in the touchdown end zone pass kind of thing. They've got to receive that package from Arizona to Utah. And originally, Cody and I had talked about the logistics of all this, and I was under the impression that you had to have a permit for each state that you travel in. So in other words, I had to have an Arizona-based permit to have a dead body and transport that in Arizona. And then I had to have a Utah-based license to transfer that body or move that body around in the state of Utah. That was not correct. The Arizona license that was given to me by the cemetery here in Arizona actually works in all 50 states. So I was able to travel freely with the body of my mom on the trailer, on Sean's beautiful trailer that he fixed up.
No, that's your trailer.
Yeah.
That's your trailer.
It's gone back and forth between us, but ultimately it served perfectly for what we needed to do. I originally was going to use an enclosed trailer, but the people down in Wilcox said, no, it'd be better if it's a flatbed trailer because we need to be able to load this thing. It's about 3,000, 4,000 pounds probably.
Holy smokes. Because it's a cement, it's not a sarcophagus. It's like, what do they call that?
They call it a vault, but it looks like a sarcophagus. Not all people are buried like that.
It was amazing. I was able to see it when we met up in Flagstaff, and it had intricate and carved engravings on the outside of it. It was very beautiful. It
was, and I was surprised because we didn't. Traditionally, when you go to a burial service, you don't see that. Here in Arizona, we do it a little bit different. At least, I don't know if it's cemetery to cemetery in Arizona or it is in Arizona how it is, but my understanding is you don't have to have a vault. A vault is a cement enclosure for a casket. And back in 1989, I guess my dad paid for the vault service. And so when we went, I've seen pictures of the funeral at the cemetery, and I've seen the casket and all that stuff 35 years ago. I've seen these photographs. I never saw a vault. So what happens is, what happened 35 years ago, when we were at the service, the casket was there with my mom's body in it at the cemetery. We did the funeral. When everybody leaves, that casket's lowered down onto a cement slab, which is the bottom portion of the vault, the cement vault that we're talking about. It has kind of like a lip. When everybody's gone and they lower the casket down, then they come back, the cemetery workers, they come back and they lower the top portion of the vault on top of that cement slab, which encases the casket.
And that's the part that is has all the engravings in it, and it seems like that would take an incredible amount of work and expense to do that, but nobody even sees it, which I think is really awesome that we put so much to honor our dead, put so much effort into honoring our dead. And I know that your family didn't have excess money to spend for that type of stuff. So it just demonstrates how much your dad really endeared your mother in her memory.
Yeah, absolutely. And so when they pull it out, so the time comes to get it out of the ground, we're on a deadline. So we leave here at Yuma. It's about 5-hour drive to Wilcox. It's about, it's a direct, as a crow flies directly straight across from Yuma, about 5 hours. So we had to take I-8, you hit I-10, you go south through Tucson, and then it's about a good hour from Tucson on I-10, close to the New Mexico border is where Wilcox lies. It's in the Chiricahua National Monument area, so it's gorgeous down there, especially now after the monsoon rains and stuff. It just really greens up. And the fear is that after 35 years, nobody knows what condition the vault is in or the casket. So we leave here, Yuma, I can't remember what time we left, maybe 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock in the morning, with the expectation of getting over there with the trailer in Wilcox in about 5 hours, hopefully around noon, 1 o'clock. So the day of, we're driving over there, and we get word from the funeral director, the cemetery manager guy, that one of the, I guess they used prisoners to do this digging, and one of them didn't show up. So that slowed down the digging, which is good for us because we were making, we had to drive. And so we finally get there around 1:30, and they had already had everything out of the ground. When they pulled it out of the ground, the vault and the casket, all we saw was the vault, and inside of it is the casket, but the bottom portion of the vault had crumbled. After 35 years, the integrity was gone. So we don't know what condition the casket was in, but it's out of the ground. They have a backhoe. They have chains around the vault, which has the casket inside of it, just hanging there. And they get that onto the trailer. It took us about an hour to get it on the trailer, just maneuver that thing because it's about 3,000 pounds, and to get it where we wanted it weight-wise. And so the idea was that, okay, hopefully we can just drive this all the way up to Utah, and they can just put everything in the ground the way that we have it on the trailer, the top part of the vault and the casket, just like that. In coordinating with the Utah people along our journey as we're driving up, because we had to meet up with you in Flagstaff, Sean, to do that speaking engagement. And so that day we had to make a decision as to what we're going to do. Do we buy a new vault up in Utah that this casket goes into? So lo and behold, in Utah, you have to be buried in a vault. I don't know if it's a groundwater issue or whatever, but you have to be, the cemetery that we're going to, you have to be in a vault. Because the bottom portion of the vault had crumbled here in Arizona, it was unusable. And you can't just buy the bottom portion of a vault.
You had to get a whole new one.
You have to get a whole new one. And it's actually the opposite. So here in Arizona, you have the slab on the bottom, the casket, and then you put the kind of like a butter dish top portion of the vault on top of the casket. In Utah, it's the reverse. It's the butter dish upside down in the ground. You put the casket in it, and then you put a slab of cement to seal it on top. So the decision was made as we're driving on the fly. We just need to do a new vault. We're not going to play around with, because timing was an issue. We had to have this all done by Monday morning when we were doing the service to put her back, or to bury her. And so we just said, just do a new vault. I think it ended up being $1,200 more. They said, well,
that's not bad.
No, I mean, it's not as pretty as the other one, but
Oh.
it's, at this point, it's fine.
Did it have any engravings on the
None.
outside?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, it's just a cement
The other one
box.
was beautiful.
It's gorgeous, and we kept it. We had to
Oh,
keep it.
really?
We didn't have to keep it, but the cemetery is like, we're not going to keep this. You take it away.
You brought the whole thing back intact?
Yeah, so we have it. So the goal is to cut those pieces out, the intricate portions,
Uh-huh.
and yeah, we can
Have
share
them
those among the
plaques,
boys.
Like at your house.
Right, exactly.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
We can use them as decorations or something down the line. So that's the goal. Use a
Yeah.
grinder to do all that.
When the kids are throwing the football in the house and one of those falls, that's when Mom really gets mad.
Yeah. It's haunted.
No. No. I don't mean your mom.
Oh,
Sorry.
I did.
Well,
I think he's talking about Jessica.
Oh,
You
yeah,
just
yeah.
be
There you go.
upset.
yeah, exactly. So, along the way, did you do any recreational activities?
Like off-roading with a casket on the back.
If you have questions or want to know more about something that was discussed today, please call the law firm of Deason, Garner, and Hansen at 928-783-4575 or visit yumaestateplanning.com.